Hey, Larken Rose here, seeing if I can record a video before I get rained on. So on my drive to these lovely woods, had a chat with my brother about things about the religion we grew up in and opinions of old people and stuff like that, but it actually brought up something that totally relates to political philosophy, but also just kind of everything else. I'm sure most of you know the appeal to authority fallacy, which is this smart person said this, therefore it's true. Like, that's not an argument. That doesn't logically follow. That's sort of silly. But I wanted to do a short video about how we naturally do sort of a low-level version of that all the time. And we have to sort of be on the lookout for that. And I try to be on the lookout for that myself. And it's partly just hardwired into us as social creatures, because if there's somebody you like and there's somebody you trust and they tell you something, sort of the default is to assume they're telling the truth. If it's somebody you trust and they're not an idiot, you assume they're telling the truth and you believe it. Because it's not like we actually have the time to literally check every single claim that anybody ever makes for ourselves. Like, oh, who won the game today? Oh, this team won. Oh, yeah? I'm going to go check. Like, we can't even function if we don't take a whole bunch of things on faith. Now, the more important the things, the less we should take it on faith. But that sort of turns into an appeal to authority thing. And you see that a lot in the freedom movement among anarchists and voluntarists and stuff, where there's a bunch of people who have written books or said things or, given speeches or whatever, or have been sort of outspoken proponents of something or other. And I don't just mean currently. There are a bunch of those current, and they go back hundreds of years. And so if somebody says a whole bunch of stuff, they start to sort of build up credibility in your head, like, oh yeah, wow. And it can be like Lysander Spooner or Thomas Jefferson or whatever. And we do this weird thing. I think we do it automatically unless we try not to, where we want to sort of categorize each person as totally smart or an idiot. So there's this tendency to, if somebody said, oh, that's smart. Yeah, that's smart. Well, that makes sense. And then he says something that you're like, wait, really? That didn't seem to add up. Now, part of that is actually rational. If somebody has a track record of being trustworthy and smart and saying things that make sense, and then they say something that sounds off to you or sounds weird, there's nothing irrational about saying, well, wait a minute. I mean, based on his track record, I wouldn't just assume he's an idiot. So did I misunderstand it? Or maybe does he know something I don't? So you can give somebody the benefit of the doubt if they've earned it. It doesn't mean, well, it must be true because he said it. It means, well, maybe I'll give it a little more credence while checking into it. Whereas if some random person passing me on the street had said that, I would have said, that's stupid. But if somebody you respect said it, you can go, I think that's stupid, but maybe I'll double check, and maybe I'll check more carefully because somebody I respect actually believes it. So that sort of benefit of the doubt makes sense because you're sort of, we're constantly sort of deciding what sources we trust and don't trust, and because, our limited time and resources make it so you kind of have to do that with most of what you hear. Like if you hear a news story about, this is going on in Cambodia. Do you jump on a plane and fly to Cambodia to make sure they told the whole truth? Like, who has the ability to do that? But the problem is if we categorize people as, oh, smart guy, dumb guy. Like, person with dumb ideas, person with smart ideas. The people with dumb ideas can totally say true things. And the people with smart ideas get things wrong. And it's weird that it's sort of built into us that instead of thinking in terms of facts and truth and ideas and principles, because we're this weird social animal, we sort of think in terms of, will I trust that guy? Have you read what this guy said about that? Okay, if somebody explains something well, cool. Like I'll quote people who I think are smart and perfectly expressing a piece of truth. It isn't true because that guy said it. But if that guy said it very succinctly, I may quote it because it's like, here's a perfect way to explain this particular thing from somebody you may have heard of. But that doesn't at all make it true. And it especially matters when there's sort of like there's nuance, or it's sort of debatable, or, well, that's sort of true, but you're missing a piece. It's like incomplete or something like that. Because we want to just go, oh, well, he was right the last 5 times I heard him say anything, so he must be right this time too. Well, no, that doesn't follow. And the reverse doesn't follow either. Somebody can be an idiot and say a bunch of stupid stuff and say things that are true. And there is lots to learn, even from a whole bunch of idiots, even from liars. But in order to learn stuff, instead of just being duped, your brain has to constantly be analyzing the claims based on their own worth rather than based on the source they came from. And this is true of everybody. It's true of me. Like, I don't ever want anybody to hear something I say and go, that sounded really dumb, but Larken said things I agreed with before, so I'm going to agree with this too. And so, and I've had like philosophical disagreements and stuff with people I've known for years and who have agreed and supported on a bunch of stuff. And sometimes it's because we actually disagree about something, which isn't the end of the world. And sometimes it's because, like, I wasn't clear enough, or they didn't understand what I was saying. And if you talk about it, oh, okay, you meant that, not this. Okay, it clears that up. So that sort of thing happens. But even if we disagree, even in my case, like, I don't want anybody, like, if they hear an idea that doesn't make sense to them, and they heard me say it, why the hell would you believe it? And I refer to that as making the truth your own. Like, you hear it from somebody else, but if it doesn't make sense to your reasoning and understanding, who cares who it came from? Like, you don't know it. And if it's some factual claim, like, yeah, I just saw some giraffes running around in these woods in Pennsylvania, you should probably think, there aren't giraffes, and I mean, maybe something really weird happened, like some eccentric freak has pet giraffes and they got away, but okay, I'm not just going to take his word for it because I liked some of the things he said before. And so that's the thing I've mentioned before. I'll mention it again, that one of the weirdest things about the religion that I grew up in is that it's based on the writings of somebody who said believing something because somebody else told you to is stupid. That's not understanding. That's not wisdom. Now, he wrote in Latin, so not only am I not giving the English translation of what he said, I'm paraphrasing that too. But he repeatedly focused on the idea that if you don't use your own brain and your own reason and your own understanding to make truth your own, to understand it for yourself, why would you ever believe it? No matter what it's about, whether it's something factual or spiritual stuff or whatever it is. So that's really dang weird for a religion to actually teach. You need to understand this for yourself, and taking our word for it is stupid. Even if we're right, it's stupid. Because if I tell you something true and you don't really know it and you take it on faith, you still don't really know it, you just believed me. But if you look into it, and if it's a concept or an idea or something, and you test it and you challenge it and you talk to other people and you do whatever you do to sort of process ideas, until you make it your own to the point that you understand it, it's just crap you're taking on faith. And I think that was a big influence on the way I think, is that I grew up in a religion that actually teaches us to doubt and to understand things, and basically teaches that faith alone, believing something because somebody told you, is kind of as bad as it gets. That's as dumb as you can get. Because then it's just blind luck what you happen to hear, and then you decided to believe that. Like, if you had been somewhere else, you would have believed something else. If you're not using your own rational faculties to decide what's true and what isn't, then you might as well just flip a coin to decide what you believe. And frankly, that's kind of what a whole lot of people do. They believe what they were surrounded by, what their parents raised them, and they don't ever doubt any of it. Now, if what you were raised with is the truth, you don't have to be scared of doubting it and putting it to the test. It'll still be the truth. You can test it every way you want. You can doubt it. You can double check. You can triple check. And if it's the truth, it'll still hold up. And if it's a lie, it shouldn't hold up, and you should throw it out the window and choose something better. But the tendency to look at an individual to decide whether to believe something, it has this, it creates an opportunity for slime balls to get control over others. And so I've talked before about how if somebody taught me algebra or something, it's like, oh, you're a good teacher, now I understand how this works. And then later you find out that person was a serial killer. Okay, that makes no difference to the algebra that he taught me. Like, it's true, and if I learned it and understood it myself, the fact that the place I got it from was an individual who was a psycho or wrong about a bunch, or, you know, worshipped a flying unicorn or something, whatever. Once the truth is your own, it doesn't matter where it came from. And that is my focus and always has been. With everything I talk about, I don't want anybody intellectually dependent on me, as in, you know, well, if you ask me a question, I'm going to go run and see what Larken said about it. Like, why the hell would you defer to me? Everything I do is trying to get people to understand. Now, of course, I want people to agree with me because I'm looking for the truth, and when I think I found the truth about something and I share it, obviously I'm hoping people will be persuaded. But it's not because I said it. And so if I say something wrong, does that undo the other things? Only if you're doing the low-level version of appeal to authority, where the only reason you believed it is because, well, that guy said it. Well, that's stupid. Because if tomorrow I say something idiotic, I lose my marbles, or it turns out I'm a cannibal or something, don't worry, I'm not. But if it turned out I was, would that undo whatever you've heard from me that you agreed with and, like, helped you understand something or whatever else? Why the hell would it? If people think in terms of ideas, in terms of messages instead of messengers, it doesn't matter what else the messenger said, because if they said some stuff that allowed you to make a piece of truth your own, you're not relying on them anymore. You're not dependent on them. And so many examples exist of people trying to make others dependent on them. I mean, the vast majority of religions do that. You come to us we will tell you how everything works and what is sin and what isn't and what you must believe to not burn in hell. You can't find it yourself. Don't trust your own judgment. Don't trust your own conscience. Don't trust anything. You come and bow before us and be thankful that we exist to boss you around. And individuals, like narcissistic bastards, will totally do that. I am the path to the truth. You must believe my teachings. Well, what if your teachings don't make sense? Then no, I won't. And if your teachings do make sense to the point that I can understand them myself, I still don't need you anymore. Like, you were just delivering a piece of truth. And if I get it and I understand it and make it my own, I don't need you anymore. And so my goal, I've said this before, sounds weird, my goal is for nobody to need me anymore. I would love to have the world give up statism so that everything I've done, like the books and the videos and all that stuff, becomes completely unnecessary and irrelevant and forgotten, because everybody understands self-ownership themselves, and why the hell would they need me for that? And that's... anybody who doesn't come across with that as the goal, I'm instantly leery of. Because if you're trying to make me dependent on what you believe and your message and your wisdom, that's creepy. Because you're not trying to raise me up to your level like, I know some stuff, I want to tell it to you. Algebra or biology, whatever it is, until you learn it and you get up to where I am on that particular topic. That's what a good teacher does. It's not being a teacher, it's being a slimy manipulator to say, I will teach you what you believe, but you still have to keep coming back to me. And you have to believe me above all else. And I have to be your authority that you defer to on everything. That's just psycho. And a good teacher, the goal of the teacher is to not be necessary in the pupil's life anymore, because, okay, passed on to that person what I knew about, whatever it happens to be, whatever they happen to teach. Their goal is the empowerment of the other person by helping the other person find that piece of truth. Their goal is not subjugating the mentality of the other person to make them dependent. And sadly, that's a thing that in a lot of just normal humanity, people take advantage of that, where it's like, well, they believe me. Well, no, I'm going to say this, and I'm going to do that, and I'm going to pretend they have to keep listening to me. And it's funny because every once in a while, I have lots of whiny haters in different ways, and some of them say, you're just saying stuff that's been said before. Absolutely true. Yep. Now I try to convey it in a way that makes it easy for anybody to understand and stuff like that, but these concepts are not new. And they're like, oh, my favorite is, you're trying to stay relevant. And that to me is always 100% projection. Because they're trying to stay relevant. They're trying to get attention. My fondest wish would be for no one to have to pay any attention to what I say about philosophy, so I can run around in nature and build stuff and write music and do stuff other than trying to talk people out of being human livestock for the worst people in the world. But it's funny to watch other people project and decide that you're not relevant anymore. That is my fondest wish when it comes to the philosophical thing, is to not be relevant, to not be needed. It's sort of like, feeling like you're a exterminator because there's termites infesting everybody's house. And you can either take the approach of, I love the fact that there's a problem because it gives me importance, and it gives me power, and it gives me income, and it gives me whatever else. Or you can actually be trying to improve the world, where your goal is to eradicate the problem so that you don't need to do anything about it ever again. And that's my goal, and it's the goal of any decent teacher, to overcome people's ignorance by helping them make truth their own. And if anybody isn't doing that, if anybody sounds like, well, if you want to keep up on things, if you want to know what's going on in the world, you have to defer to me. You have to constantly watch me. And there's a whole lot of people who tell me, oh yeah, I haven't checked out your videos for years because I read your book or whatever. I agreed. You're totally right. So whatever, I have other things to do. And I'm like, outstanding. If you're not stuck in the swamp and insanity of statism, there's almost no reason to pay any attention to what I do. Now there's things about how to talk to other people about, voluntarism and stuff like that. So it's not nothing, but my fondest wish is for nobody to need anything I've ever done on the subject again, because they all go, duh, we understand that we have made that truth our own, including the zillions of people who made it their own without ever hearing a word I said and didn't get it from me. They got it from other people or thinking about stuff. But that's the downside of our tendency to do the low-level appeal to authority thing, is people take advantage of that and go, ooh, now I have an avenue for control, instead of I have an opportunity to help free somebody from ignorance, to help them teach something that I happen to know before they did. Because that's the difference between a teacher and a pupil, is just when they happen to learn a thing, then they pass it on to the next one. It doesn't mean they're better. It doesn't mean you should defer to them and bow to them in all things. It means, maybe listening to this guy about whatever this topic is might help me know something new, and then the truth is mine, and then the messenger doesn't matter. And then you move on to something else. And it's kind of frustrating how few people seem to take that approach. But I thought I'd do a rant about it. So I did, and now I'm about to get rained on, as you can hear. So I should probably end this video before my laptop explodes. Yeehaw.